In this class, I'm going to discuss about a concept of Android called as fragments. Okay, I've already spoken about this particular word earlier in the concept of layouts. Okay, but let me just quickly go through what is a fragment in Android and why do we need it and how do we use it. Okay, so I'm going to discuss about the theory part of fragment, also some components which are required to do the program for tomorrow. Okay, so let me just go through it. Number one, what is a fragment? A fragment represents a reusable portion of your app's UI. This is a simple definition, guys. Okay, I want you to notice this. What is a fragment? It just represents a reusable portion. Okay, in English we can use the word fragment as a part of something, isn't it? So similarly here also I can say a portion, a part of your app's UI. UI in the sense user interface, which is nothing but your activity. Okay, so what does a fragment do? It defines and manages its own layout, has its own life cycle, and can handle its own input events. Okay, now I want you to just focus on this, that activity fragment. What is an activity? What is a fragment? Okay, we will discuss more about it when the program we are doing, but theoretically just understand a fragment is just a small part which runs inside an activity. Okay, I'll give you examples and screenshots also. Just go through this, bear with me for some time. Fragments cannot live on their own. Note these points, very important, guys. Okay, they must be hosted by an activity or by another fragment. Majority of the time it is hosted by an activity. Okay, one activity can have n number of fragments. Okay, I'll show you how they work. Okay, I think better we see a screenshot, we'll understand what is a fragment. Okay, we are using it every day, but I just wanted to point it out to you. Okay, fragments view hierarchy becomes a part of or attaches to the host's view hierarchy. What is a view? What is a view hierarchy? Okay, just look at the bottom of your screen when you are designing in the activity layout. On the left hand side, you see something called component tree. Okay, in which it will tell you what layout you are in, how many controls are there inside. That layout is a view group, and when you put a drag and drop a text box or a button, that becomes a view. The hierarchy of how your controls are put. Okay, so that is what is a view hierarchy. So what is the fragments view hierarchy? It becomes part of or it gets attached to the activities or the host's view hierarchy. Okay, you can combine multiple fragments in a single activity to build a multi-pane UI. First advantage of using a fragment, you can combine multiple fragments in a single activity. First advantage. Second advantage is that you can use one fragment in multiple activities. Okay, please understand that last line. It's very essential for you to understand. The first line and the last line, I want you to be very clear of what is a fragment. It just represents, it is a small part. Okay, it's a fragment. It's a portion of your app's UI which can be reused. Okay, so one activity can have multiple fragments and one fragment can be used in multiple activities. Please understand these words, guys. It's very essential. Let's also see an example. Look at this screenshot. That's all. Okay, you'll understand what is a fragment quickly. All right, look at this. That's your regular WhatsApp screenshot, what I took from their website itself. Okay, it was an old one, but I hope you understand. Right now you have calls, messages, you have chats, you have status, you have something. Okay, you have 3 or 4 tabs in your WhatsApp application. Okay, so how is it possible to create an activity like this? Okay, you might ask that those are tabs on the top, so we can just use tab activity. Okay, understood. Okay, but tab is just a control. The part which you see here is just a control. What you see here as your chat and all is not in that activity because it's too complicated to keep chats, statuses, everything in one activity, isn't it? So what they do is they divide it. So this is a fragment. Okay, calls is a fragment, status is a fragment. Okay, like that you have different fragments. In your Google Play Store, at the bottom you have some tabs, games, apps, movies, books, like that they are there. When you tap on apps, you see something. When you tap on movies, you see something else here. Okay, so what is coming here? One activity only. This is only one activity, but each and every thing which you keep here are fragments. Okay, this is the big picture for you. All right, so this is what we are doing. We are repeating a same activity, but different fragments in one activity. This is a simple example, guys. Okay, let me move on. It must always be hosted in an activity because activity can run alone. Fragments cannot run alone. Keep this in mind. Okay. And when it comes to a fragment, okay, please note there's a life cycle. Always remember that life cycle for an activity is there. Okay, so whoever runs inside this activity will have their own life cycle, but it gets affected by the host's life cycle. Okay, just think that activity is like a parent, the mother, and the fragment is a child. Okay, if the mother is destroyed, the child gets destroyed. That's what we are trying to say here. Master slave. Okay, or the parent child. When the parent is not there, the child cannot survive on its own. That's what we are trying to tell through the activity and fragment idea. Okay, so a fragment must always be hosted inside an activity, and the fragment's life cycle is directly affected by the host activity's life cycle. Okay, for example, when you pause an activity, all the fragments in it are also paused or also destroyed. Okay, I hope you follow. When you pause, when you stop activity in which fragments are running. Okay, why am I talking about the second program here is what in the lab record 2, I have told you to create a simple calculator using fragments. Okay, why I'm doing that is we are going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all those things. But these 4 operations are going to be done in 4 different fragments and going to be displayed in one activity. I hope you follow. That's why I'm using that calculator as an it's not calculator which I want you to understand, but it's the concept. Okay, so fragment in the next class, tomorrow's class, I'll do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one activity and put 4 fragments in it. Each fragment will represent the answer of one operation, adding, subtracting, multiplying, division, like that. Okay, so when you destroy that activity which I've created, these 4 fragments what I'm going to create will also get destroyed, because fragments life cycle is directly linked or directly attached to the activity's life cycle. Okay, however, while an activity is running, you can manipulate each fragment independently. Okay, so the fragments are not dependent on each other. Each fragment is dependent on the activity, not on each other. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. When I'm adding a number, only that adding fragment will get affected. Remaining 3 fragments will not do anything. They won't be affected at all. Okay, so you can manipulate each fragment independently, like adding them, removing them, etc. Okay, with the introduction of fragment, we have got more flexibility and we have removed the limitation of having a single activity on the screen at a time. Now, majority of us had this issue in the beginning when we started with Android development. Okay, that's because just think about it, how complicated apps are right now. Okay, and every data which is coming, just think, I told you whatever you are seeing is an activity, isn't it? So let's take the example of WhatsApp or Messenger or your ordering apps or whatever apps you take up. Okay, the first screen what you see, the activity you see, so much of data is there. And while we do a Fibonacci series or the contacts app, what we had done, you see so much of code was generated, isn't it? So what about these people who are doing such a complicated application? How will they be able to manage everything in one activity? That's because divide and conquer. Okay, so when you divide your work into fragments, okay, if everybody is taking care of one fragment, later all I need to do is put all those fragments in one activity. So even though each fragment is very simple, when you put all these fragments in one activity, the app looks complicated. Okay, so it's another way of dividing your work. Give the work to people as fragments. Okay, and then put them together in one activity. It looks like one full complete app. That's what we are trying to focus on. So you have only one activity on a screen is allowed at a time, but I can show lots of data in one activity itself. Okay, most of you have seen that in your mobile phone apps, like the service provider apps like Airtel or BSNL or Jio. Okay, you will see that small boxes they have kept, card layouts. Okay, I'll show that in this. I've just taken Airtel and Jio as example, but let me just show that quickly. Now we can have a single activity. Each activity can comprise of multiple fragments, which will have their own layout, their own event, their own life cycle. This is what we are targeting towards. Okay, I've just given an example of Airtel and Jio here. Okay, you see in Jio you have a small card here, small box here. It says when your plan expires, okay, and how much of data is remaining, what is your balance, okay, etc., etc. Like this, some things are there in Geo's app, my Geo app, and in Airtel's you have something like this, which has each and every line with a particular person in your family, how much data is left, how much amount is left, what is the broadband bill, what is your DTH expiry date, okay, and all those things are available in the Airtel app itself. Each and everything here is now we can consider them as small fragments. Okay, this is the best example for you to understand how a small fragment works. I'm going to show these kind of fragments. I'm going to put 4 fragments like this, but the data what you see here will be manipulated by adding 2 numbers or subtracting like that. Later we can convert it into whatever data we wanted to. Okay, this is an example, guys. Just a small sample of a fragment. This can be considered as a fragment, but this is a full activity. This is one fragment, this is one fragment. Okay, if you see when you open this page, when your net is a little bit slow, you'll see that this part is loading, this part is loading, this part is loading. A small loading screen will come because it's fetching data from some other fragment and displaying it in this one activity. Okay, that's what I want you to understand. Here at the bottom again, you see that when you tap on all these things, a new fragment has been brought up there. But only one activity. This is one activity right now I'm seeing. Okay, remember this. This is the advantage of a fragment. Now, the second thing what I want to tell you is the life cycle of a fragment. Okay, I'm not going to explain this, guys. I'm going to keep it as self-study because it is exactly the same as an activity. It has on create, it has on start, on resume, on pause, on stop, on destroy. Same thing is there. Little bit difference is there in the middle. I want you to find out what it is and keep it ready for your theory purposes. So I don't want to waste time. I'm going to explain this part. It's self-study on your fragment life cycle. Okay, I'm not going to use it. That's why I'm not taking it in class because I'm not going to apply it. So I want you to apply it and learn it on your own. Okay, for your theory purposes. Practically, we won't be using it much in this lab record. Okay. The next 2 keywords, what I'm going to, with that I'll stop. Okay. Only thing is fragment manager. Okay. Fragment manager is something which you'll be using in programming. Okay. What is a fragment manager? As simple as that. It manages the fragments. Okay. And you put this using objects inside of an activity. A fragment manager manages fragments in Android. Specifically, it handles transaction between fragments. Okay, keep a look at the word called transaction, guys. Everything you perform with the help of a fragment is considered as a transaction. Just like how you exchange, add or remove money from your account, fragment also is considered as a very important asset. So transactions are involved in adding a fragment and removing a fragment. Okay, second word is transaction. It just gives you methods to add, replace, remove fragments in Android. Transaction gives you the methods to add, replace and remove. Where will you get the transaction from? From manager. Okay, it begins with the help of a manager. That's what I just explained. Let me show you the code in simple terms. First line, you create a manager using fragment manager space manager equal to get support fragment manager. That's all. So manager is now, you have created an object of the manager. Next line is very simple. Create a transaction, begin the transaction using the manager object. Fragment transaction is equal to manager.begin transaction. I'll be doing this code in the next program, guys, but just listen this. Okay, transaction.add, transaction.replace, transaction.remove. So you add activity, you replace, add a fragment, you replace a fragment, you remove a fragment, okay, using a transaction, and the transaction is created using the manager. Remember this code, I will be explaining it once again, okay, later. And last line. I put this last because I wanted to understand that it is very essential. It's just like if you don't save a file and you close the document, okay, the system will say you have not saved the file. If you click on save, it will try to save. Otherwise, if you click on don't save, what will happen? Whatever you have typed right now will be lost. Okay, same thing. After doing everything, if the last line is not commit, you will not see anything happening for your fragments. Remember that last line is very essential. Last part, only one more minute, guys. I'll finish this. Frame layout. I've already taken this in layouts in Android. Okay, I'm just recollecting this just for you to understand why frame layout was used. Okay, it will act as a placeholder for your control for a single child view. In my case, that single child view will be a fragment. Okay, frame layout will act as a placeholder on the screen to hold my fragment. Okay. Child views are added in a stack and the most recently added child will show on the top. Okay, frame layout is designed to block out an area on the screen. What you saw in Geo's data and call amount available, that's a small block which is blocked in the screen, isn't it? A purple color something. That's a frame. That's a frame layout which was used to block that area on the screen to display one single item. Generally, they should be used to hold only a single view because it can be very difficult to organize child views in a way that it is scalable to different screen sizes. That's all. I've shown this diagram already in the layouts in Android PPT. Just go through that. Okay, this is whatever you see in different colors there in boxes there. Okay, each box, what you see is a frame layout in one activity. The first main activity, what I've displayed here, each box is a frame layout. What you see inside, the color changing, the text view, what you see there is coming from a fragment. So I've created 7 fragments here, and each fragment I've just written a code to change its background color every now and then. Okay, and I've called those fragments into one activity. So you see, this is one activity what you are seeing, but 7 fragments inside. Where are these fragments displayed? They are displayed inside frame layout. Okay, I hope this is clear. In tomorrow's class, I'll be doing a program to demonstrate the same concept using the lab record program number 2. Okay, so with this, I'll stop for today, guys.